Hey, coming up on your favorite podcast, a brand new podcast comes your way tonight. It's Peak Cinema with Lauren. That's right. Lauren's in. We're going to talk movies for the next hour or so. In fact, one movie in particular. That's right. When we're going to talk Peak Cinema, there's only one place to start. You guessed it. Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. We break it all down. A deep dive into a classic from now 23 years ago, if you can believe that. It's going to be fantastic. So it's Lauren, it's me. We're talking movies for the next hour. Enjoy Peak Cinema with Lauren on the pod. Hey, it's the Tim Anderson Podcast. I'm Tim Anderson, and thanks for tuning us in yet again. Another wonderful show on the way. This time we're going away from sports. First time in a while, but I'm excited as hell about it. We've been talking about doing this pod for quite a while, and we're doing it tonight. We're going to get into some film as promised. You know, I've been advertising that I'll talk film on this podcast, and I haven't done it. Tonight, I'm delivering because it's the debut of Peak Cinema with Lauren. And Lauren has joined us tonight, and like I said, when we want to talk about Peak Cinema, there's only one place to start, and that's with Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery from 1997. Lauren, how are you, dear? Good to have you here. And Ryan's here as well. Ryan, of course, has to be on the pod. I mean, that's just the way this goes. We got Ryan here to kind of be a referee, I feel like. I think he's going to have some movie opinions, but he's going to make sure that Lauren and me don't get too out of hand here, and I think that's really important. Lauren, first of all, welcome to the pod. Good to have you here.
Good to be here. Ready to discuss our nation's classic about a movie that takes place in the UK, Austin Powers.
And filmed mostly in the Arizona desert.
Yep, absolutely. Just a film classic.
It's so good. And Ryan, of course, welcome to the pod. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's good to be here. Second night in a row. We're putting in work here on the Tim Podcast Network.
Yeah, we are. And you know what? And we're growing like leaps and bounds. I want to thank all the good people of Arkansas for listening to our pod. Minnesota and Arkansas, we are cleaning house in those two states. Everybody buckle up. Although our Nevada and California listenership is going up as well. So the four states that matter, we got a couple of blues, got a couple of reds in there. We're mixing it up. We're creating a United States of America again. That's Lauren, that's me, and that's Ryan. How good is that? All right. Why Austin Powers, Lauren? This pod is really your creative control. You said, Tim, go watch Austin Powers. Why Austin Powers? Why did we pick this?
I legitimately have not seen Austin Powers since I was, let's say 15 at the oldest. But it feels like the type of movie that probably wouldn't hold up, that I would still love unconditionally anyways. And I was interested to revisit it, knowing full well that it might suck.
I love this philosophy heading into the film. We'll find out if it does still suck, or it does suck, or it holds up in Lauren's eyes in just a moment. And Ryan, how many times have you seen this Austin Powers movie?
So, never. I had never seen an Austin Powers movie in my life before we sat down to watch this. It was not something that was allowed in my house.
Well, this is good then. We've got the guinea pig watching the film for the first time. We have Lauren, who has not seen the movie since she was, a wee lass. And I grew up, this movie hits me right where I live. I was 16 when this film came out, freshman in high school, and it was...
Freshman at 16, eh?
Well, 15, 16. I was 15. No, 97, so it's my sophomore year. Yeah, it's late. My freshman year ends in 97. I think this comes out late freshman year into sophomore year. So I think it's kind of right about there. Yeah, May of 97. So my freshman year is wrapping, and then I'm turning 16 that summer. So, sure. I'm still 15, heading into 16, heading into my sophomore year. So this is hitting me in a good spot. It's a film that I think was really anticipated at the time because, well, first of all, Mike Myers, in doing some research, didn't do a film for 4 years, and I didn't even know that. He does Wayne's World in 92. He comes back and does Wayne's World in 93 along with So I Married an Axe Murderer, which is an underrated film. And then he's gone for 4 years, totally out of the picture game. I think he might still have been on SNL for another year, but he's out of the mix. And then all of a sudden he just shows up promoting this film and it's on MTV. He has his own like MTV special before the film's released. It's insane. And the film is every bit as crazy as we thought it was going to be, and he's playing both parts, and it was like this reintroduction of Mike Myers to the world in 1997.
I mean, I was 6 when this movie came out. So my experience with it was different.
Well, yeah, you see it like 9 years later than I did. Yeah, for sure.
I saw it when I was 6. This is one of those movies where, so I'm the youngest. And my 2 older sisters are much older than me. I say much older than me.
Keep telling them that. Keep telling them that.
Boy, I can't wait for your sisters to hear that line.
Yeah, keep telling them that. Keep saying it. It's good.
No, they were like, teenagers when this movie came out, and I was not. And this is one of those movies that my family just one of many movies that my family just wanted to watch and didn't care that I was 6.
It's weird how people, because I think I saw this as a family as well for the first time, and I was thinking, my family didn't watch a lot of movies, but my old man loves these kinds of movies, and my mom, they just were cracking at this, and I don't know why people thought this was a family film, but hey, it worked.
I don't really understand that either, because really the only other experience that people would have had with Mike Myers is on SNL or Wayne's World. Wayne's World, a movie I also don't really think is appropriate for kids, but I also definitely watched when I was like 6 years old.
Yeah, and I don't think there's much wrong with Wayne's World. I loved Wayne's World. I thought, and that's just it. Mike Myers this was so interesting because Myers kills it with Wayne's World and comes out, and it's just a home run. One of the best SNL films. It still is one of the best SNL films. So I Married an Axe Murderer is decent. It's not great at the time. People don't love it, but it's kind of achieved like a cult classic stage right now. And Wayne's World 2 isn't very good. I mean, they're clearly just they're going to the well trying to make a little money here. But even then, like, we get it. Like, it seems like it's rolling. It's working for Mike Myers. And then like I said, then he's gone for almost 4 years until he comes back with this. Let me set the scene for you, Lauren. Here's some of the domestic box office classics of 1997 to get you ready for this. The number one grossing movie in America, not world gross. World gross is Titanic. But in America, it's Men in Black, The Lost World,
Really?
Jurassic Park. Yeah, $250 million. Jurassic Park's Lost World. Liar Liar is 3, and we'll get back to that later. Air Force One is 4. Star Wars Episode... Yes. Episode 4, Star Wars, is A New Hope. That's the prequel. That is... in 5th, My Best Friend's Wedding, Titanic, Face Off, Batman and Robin. Or, I mean, what is it? Not A New Hope. What is it? Star Wars, unless they re-released. Did they re-release Star Wars Episode 4?
They must have re-released
Yeah, here it is, 1997. Yep, 1997 special edition. So they brought it out into theaters where it made another $137 million. Just so you know. Just so you know. George of the Jungle made $105 million, which, by the way, we got to talk about that movie someday. That's a good one.
I have to discuss Brendan Fraser in the 90s.
Yes, we'll have to get into Brendan Fraser. Con Air, Hercules, and down the line, we also get some classics. Jerry Maguire is 1997. We get Scream and Scream 2 on the docket in 1990. They both show up in 1997. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Can I just point out?
Yes.
That Con Air is one of the best movies of all time.
You know what? It is pretty good, actually. I like Con Air. But Austin Powers shows up as the 35th. It made $53 million at the box office. Cost them $16 million to make.
So there's part of that is, was that domestic or
That's domestic. Worldwide, it did about $67 million. Not too bad. Okay. Not bad for this kind of film.
Not bad.
Considering the big blockbusters in this year. It's crazy blockbusters.
And also, so in the UK, worldwide, I'm surprised it did that well. In the UK, I guess it wasn't super popular right when it came out because it was released not that long after Princess Diana passed away.
Yes, and they had to change some stuff in the script. That's crazy. They
had a joke about Prince Charles' affair with Camilla that they had to cut. I think you can still get it.
It's in the TV version. I watched it in the TV version. Like when they played it on Comedy Central, I think like 2 months back, the joke was in there. And yeah, it's may have been in poor taste. May have been just a little bit.
I mean, Yes, but also that feels like an unexpected
Yeah. I also
event that really screwed them over.
I also think those blimey British bastards, they have such a problem with Americans doing British accents. Like, it's Myers, it's Mimi Rogers, it's all these Americans playing British characters, and they can't stand for that. There's no standing for that.
To be fair, I do hate it when British actors do American accents.
You're not a fan of Cumberbatch? Whoa, wait a minute. This is harsh.
Okay. Some in the same way that some American actors are basically known for their British accents, they're very good. There are some British actors who are have very amazing American accents.
Name
and then
5.
some I will next time because I have to compile a list, okay? But Hugh Laurie's number 1. He's got a great American accent. But there's something about, because they speak so properly, it's like they can't not speak properly. And like nobody in America has this nobody over enunciates everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can freaking tell. I can tell you're struggling so hard. It makes me hurt. Just don't do it. Your character can be British. It's fine.
Although, sometimes it's not fine. Like, sometimes I don't get it. Like, it doesn't make sense that the character's British. But I appreciate, you know what? I think they're better off pulling it off than most Americans really struggle doing a good British accent. I find that Brits can pull off the American thing more. Like, you watch The Walking Dead, like 95% of the actors on that show are freaking British. And they can pull off the Southern Georgia thing just perfectly. It's crazy.
We're getting into a different place now, but there's something about like the Southern accent that I feel like British people can do better. I think it's because it's a very specific dialect. I know, Ryan, you know more about this than I do. But
the Southern accent is a slowed down version of the British accent. That's all it is. It really, like, if the British accent took a stroll through a peach orchard, that's the kind of accent that the Southern accent becomes.
There's a thought for it. All right. Let's return to the film here a little bit. So it's up against some big blockbusters. Mike Myers returns from the dead out of nowhere to put this film together. A couple other interesting nuggets in the beginning before we really dive into the film. So it's released in 1997. The Dr. Evil character is loosely based on Lorne Michaels, which actually creates animosity between him and Dana Carvey. Because Dana Carvey believes that Mike Myers stole Carvey's impression of Lorne Michaels to create the Dr. Evil character, and that is why those two guys didn't talk for like the longest time.
I did not know that.
Yes, there was heat between those two guys because Carvey kind of was upset about that. At least that's what a lot of the rumors are. Here's another couple interesting notes for you. 30 to 40% of the script, they say, is improvised. So,
I believe that 100%.
Yeah, you can kind of see that in some scenes where you're like, there's no way that's written. Like, especially with Dr. Evil early on. There's just no chance. Now, this is the interesting nugget before we get started. This is something for you to think about. The original plan was for Mike Myers to not play both parts. Did you know this?
Yes, I found that out because Liar Liar came out in the same year.
Yep.
And he wanted Jim Carrey to play Dr. Evil, which is a different vision of him.
And Carrey wants to do it except for Liar Liar. And, I mean, good decision by Jim Carrey. Liar Liar's huge, maybe his all-timer, but not a... I mean, that's so... You're right, the film is really different when you start thinking like Jim Carrey's hijinks as Dr. Evil as opposed to this sort of, stiff Dr. Evil Mike Myers thing. I mean, it's really weird to think about how different that would have been.
I might be in the minority on this, but I would have almost preferred Jim Carrey as Austin Powers and Mike Myers as Dr. Evil.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I kind of agree about that. I kind of agree. I feel like Jim Carrey is such like a physically dynamic actor that one of the things that works about Dr. Evil is that he is kind of like stiff and weird and quiet. And I don't think Jim Carrey's any of those things. And I think that if the two of them were playing in a movie against each other, both kind of just so much just so much. I don't think that movie works.
Yeah.
I mean, the penis pump scene alone, if that were Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
instantly becomes like 50 times better in my mind.
Oh, that scene is still really good. I don't know what it is about that scene. It totally
absolutely
works.
is. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not. I laughed so hard at that scene I cried. But the point is, I think that Jim Carrey, with his physicality, trying to look as not uncomfortable as possible, you know what I mean, next to this like very attractive woman that he's clearly trying to impress, would be hilarious.
There's something to be said for that. I you might be onto something there, but that scene is so. I have that written down as one of my like 3 or 4 favorite scenes of the film. There's no question about it. That one is just a gem of a scene because of Elizabeth Hurley, first of all, playing this perfectly timed straight character. No words spoken from Elizabeth Hurley, and yet she just kills it by just holding her face the entire time, and it's so great. It's just fantastic. 71% on Rotten Tomatoes, actually, if you can believe
I was
that.
a little surprised by that.
Yeah, and Roger Ebert loves it. Calls it, says, quote, a funny movie that only gets funnier. Roger Ebert.
He is, in my brain at least.
I can't figure Raj out. Raj is all over the map, man.
I know. I thought he was like notoriously tough. And I feel like this is one of those movies in my brain, like kind of Robin Hood Men in Tights style, where it's like we all collectively thought it was funny, but critics hated it. And when I discovered that critics loved it, I was like, are you serious?
Yeah, they didn't love the other two.
If this movie came out today, critics would hate it.
You think
I'm
so?
telling you right now. Oh, yes.
Really? Why do you think that?
Because of the style of movie that comes out now. It feels like everything has to have some deeper meaning. Everything has to be some Oscar bait piece of shit for it to get like garner attention. Can't just be, you can't just enjoy yourself. And that's all this movie is. There's no deeper meaning to Austin Powers. It's just fun. It's just fun and it's funny.
It is funny, no question. Ryan, this is the first time you saw it, so let's dive into the film, but let's ask you, what did you think then? So it's 20-some years removed. It's the first time you seeing it. What did you think?
I have to preface this opinion by saying, my wife will back me up on this. I have the worst taste in movies in the history of the world. I am a 14-year-old boy as far as my movies are concerned. One of my favorite movies before I saw this movie of all time is the movie Dumb and Dumber.
That's a classic. There's nothing wrong with that one.
Which I believe is also a 1997 comedy.
No, 90. I think that one's 95. Might be 95.
Okay.
Yeah, 95.
Either way, I love that movie.
It's great. It's one of my faves.
This movie, I think, falls in the exact same category, where it just tickles me in the right spot. It's not trying to be anything. It's not trying to fool you. It's a dumb slapstick movie. It's the same reason I love Family Guy. It's the same reason that I watched, South Park for a long time. It's just dumb. And I can shut my brain off and laugh at some stupid, dirty jokes for an hour and a half.
I will say that I do think because Dumb and Dumber, as you know, Ryan, is a film that makes me want to set my hair on fire. And
True.
I think that the difference between a Dumb and Dumber and an Austin Powers is that the jokes in Dumb and Dumber are so stupid. I feel as though I am losing brain cells as I'm watching it. And the jokes in Austin Powers are like some of them are smarter jokes than I remember. And some of them are just kind of like, it's just silliness. It's silliness. It's not stupidity. And I think that that's the difference for me.
But here's the thing. I think the main difference for you, if I'm not stepping out of line here, is the fact that you saw Austin Powers when you were 6. So Austin Powers will always have been funny to you. And I saw Dumb and Dumber when I was 7. So Dumb and Dumber will always be funny to me. The difference is I didn't outgrow Dumb and Dumber and become this big, gigantic film buff where I have a 300 movie collection, where I watch movies that have meaning. I didn't do that. I grew up and I'm like, yeah, this is great. We're going to stick with this. This is what works for me. I'm going to watch all the Avengers. I'm going to watch Saving Private Ryan. I'm going to stick with Lord of the Rings, and my movie taste will not evolve from there.
Until you meet me, and now every film that you have seen in the last 10 years is because of me. If you other than those style of movies, any like Dumb and Dumber or anything in a Chris Farley, if it's anything other than that, and you've seen it, it's because I've made you watch it.
There's probably
I
some
watched
truth
The
to
Green
that.
Mile long before I met you.
Okay, that's one.
You joined us also here, folks,
That
for
one
some
movie.
counseling session here. This is really, really good. This is very therapeutic for me to watch, to take part in this as well. I enjoy this thoroughly.
If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, Tim's known us both since we were in high school.
and you're, first of all, you're both wrong. The best movie of all time is Roadhouse, and Roadhouse is the correct answer.
stop.
And Point Break, a close second. If P. Swayze is in it, it's a great film.
Can I ask a
no, I'm
question?
just kidding.
This might be a dumb question, but I just have a quick question.
Sure.
What is Point Break? I've heard this.
Dude. No,
I have heard of
stop.
this. I've not seen it.
Stop it. You come on.
Ryan, you'd like it.
Dude, you'd love it. Are you kidding me? Lauren, Point Break, you seen it?
One time.
Okay.
It's not my flavor.
Yep, we're watching that. Keanu Reeves, P. Swayze, it's on. We're totally doing that. Anyway, back to this film. All right, Austin Powers, you love it. Ryan says he loves it. Lauren, did it hold? Let's start there. Does it hold for you? And then we'll dig into why.
I think it does and it doesn't. I think it holds in that I was surprised by how funny I still thought this movie was. You know, the humor of the 90s is very different than the humor of now.
I prefer the humor of the 90s.
A comedy like this would never be made now, and that's fine.
You sure? Really? You don't think they would go over? I mean, I didn't think anything was so over the top here. Did you think?
I don't think it's about being over the top. I think it's just the style of the movie. I mean, like, you know, for example, Will Ferrell movies, they're losing their popularity. You know what I
That's
mean?
fair.
In terms of the new ones that are coming out.
That's fair.
I just don't think that something like this would get made now. And that's kind of fine. I also think that something that people like to point out about this movie is that it doesn't hold up because Austin Powers is so obviously sexually harassing Elizabeth Hurley, in which I would
That's true.
probably I would say yes.
That's true.
But also I would counter that with that is the joke. He comes from a time where he thinks that's normal and she has to convince him that that's not normal.
Yeah, he has
So I think
the great line in there about, well, if we're still doing recreational drugs and we're still having crazy non-monogamous sex around here, I'm going to blend in just fine.
Exactly. That's the joke. He's outdated. That is the joke of the entire movie.
Exactly.
So it was outdated in 1997, and so it's outdated now. But that's the joke. So that's what I would counter with. I think for the most part, it does hold up.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought, I hadn't watched it in a long time, and when I sat down, there are scenes where, I don't chuckle much openly at things now. I mean, you really got to make me laugh. It's got to be brilliant. And I'm laughing at stuff like, I love the first couple Dr. Evil scenes are just terrific. I don't know what it is, but there's something about it that totally works for me. Obviously the throw me a bone here. I mean, that's the overplayed line, but there's so much other stuff going on with Frau Farbissina and Will Ferrell's little Mustafa character about how he's in the fire pit early on. He's like, I am badly burned. Somebody please open the door.
Where is Dr. Evil?
Died.
Where is Dr. Evil? Where is Dr. Evil? Damn, 3 times.
But that's number 2. See, that's just it. They bring the bit back, but this first time bit, I was like, oh, that bit is really good. And it's so funny. And I love that one. And for the unthawing scene early on absolutely destroys me because it reminds me of like Woody Allen's Sleeper. But they play on a lot of the same kind of bits. The whole, even the fact that he pees for a minute. I mean, it's an old bit, but man, that bit still works. I don't know what it is.
There's something about timing to that joke because I remember that one. And so I thought that I was like, this is just going to feel so old and dumb. And it just went on for a lot longer than I thought it was going to.
And you can't help but laugh. You try not to laugh at it. It's just contagious. Something about a guy peeing for like a half hour is funny. I don't know what that is, but guys peeing is so
fantastic.
funny to me. I don't know.
I think one of the major moments that got me was the toilet fight scene.
Oh God, yeah.
Where you've got the cowboy sitting there like, yeah, you show that turd who's boss, man. It's legitimately one of the funniest moments I've seen in a movie. I cried. I was laughing so hard.
Tom Arnold makes me laugh very little, but in that scene, he kills me. It is so funny.
I think I would say that almost all of my favorite scenes are with Scott. Anything with Scott is pretty much guaranteed to make me laugh. I wish I was never artificially created in a lab. Why didn't I utilize that more as a child? I just feel like that is the best. Those are all of my favorite scenes.
And I love the way Dr. Evil just goes back and forth between being just a total dick and then trying to be a good dad at the same time. It's like, oh, don't say that around dad. You know, that hurts when you say that. And you don't know if he's being serious or not, but it's hysterical. And then obviously his speech in the support group where he's talking about his parents, and it's just oh my God.
That's not to quote the title of this podcast, but that's peak cinema. I'm serious.
It sure is.
That is the best monologue that I think I've seen in almost any movie.
Known for making like really odd statements, like she invented the question mark or something. It's just the most ridiculous. And you sit there and you can't stop laughing the entire time. And it still works. It's 23 years later, and that scene is still funny. It is so darn funny. I love it.
I have to say, just while we're still talking about favorite moments in the movie, as I'm reflecting on this, you mentioned the unfreezing scene. One of the best parts of that is when they go, the Cold War's over, and he's like, yeah, those capitalist pigs will finally pay for their crime.
Yeah, the Russian guy standing right there.
Austin, we won. Oh, groovy, smashing capitalism.
Yay, capitalism.
That was definitely, there are like, I mean, for obvious reasons, there were several jokes that went over my head when I watched this as a kid, and that was one of them, and I nearly died listening to that joke. I feel like this is, I mean, I didn't watch this as a teenager, so take that as you will, but this is a lot funnier than I remember it being, which I think is really rare.
It really is. They've got some, great moments, and there's some of those, it doesn't have some of the iconic moments that I tried to remember because I'm like, oh, I guess that one's in Spy Who Shagged Me, or that one was in Goldmember, and you start to, the scenes kind of start to run together. So there's some of those. Some scenes are not as iconic as you remembered them being, but I think the writing is just a lot cleaner in this one. The bit with the CD, trying to play the record with the CD player is just, it's so funny. I mean, that's the kind of fish out of water stuff that worked really well in this one that they couldn't duplicate in the other two. And I think that's why it totally works. So we kind of hit on favorite scenes and what scenes still work. Do you have any others that you think still, or anything else we should throw out there before we go to scenes that don't work?
I should really just start making a list of, because I have bullet points of all of my thoughts throughout the entire movie, so it's a little hard to parse out. But I should really just start making lists of things that make Ryan laugh.
Yeah, there's the criteria for film.
Because this is like how fun is it to get to watch a movie with somebody who's never seen it for the first time? And especially from where I was sitting, I was kind of expecting this not to be that funny. And Ryan is cracking up every 5 minutes. And I was like, I garnered so much joy from that. It made me feel better about this choice.
It's a really good choice. I hadn't seen it in so long, and I just didn't have any expectations, because for actually the longest time, I worked in a video store when Spy Who Shagged Me came out, and I remember liking Spy Who Shagged Me a lot. In fact, I kept saying, I like that one better than the first one. I don't know why. Maybe it was the fat bastard thing. I really don't know what made me like Austin 2 better, but you go back and you watch the first one, you're like, the first one is a better film. I might still like 2 more, but 1 is the better of the 2 films because it's sharper, it's smarter. And then you start to get the backdrop of like Mike Myers decides after 4 years off, he's going to put this film out, and he's just going for it. Like, he just says, I'm going to go totally away from typecast. I'm not going to play these kinds of characters. I'm going to do this instead. And it totally works. Like, and it's so smart, and you could tell it was just a guy, like a labor of love kind of film. No doubt about it. Now, let me ask you this. What scene doesn't work? What scenes don't work in this film that you maybe... That's just the time's a victim sometimes. Like time kills a scene, or there's a character that doesn't work anymore. What happens here?
I think the whole a lot of vagina bit,
Yeah.
that got a little stale a little quickly. I think if it was like just her name and that was like the end of the bit, I think I would be fine with it. But the whole scene with her, I don't know. It was just like, when is this gonna? It felt so cringy.
Yeah.
I feel okay never watching that scene again.
Yeah, I agree with it. That one was kind of weird. I didn't dig that one the same. I thought that one was kind of... Yeah, that one didn't hold the same way that some of the other scenes did. Yeah, some of these names were just dumb. I thought that one didn't quite work for me. I don't know.
Well, the a lot of vagina, I took that as a play on Pussy Galore.
Well, yeah, clearly.
100%.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I think they hit on... But that's just it. That's an audience now so far removed from that James Bond, from that era of James Bond. Like, if you're watching it now, you're like, I don't get it. Other than it's just a crack on... It's a vagina joke, right? It doesn't hold the same way. So I agree that one may not work like it did in 97. Now it's just more of a shock value bit that doesn't seem to work as well. What else doesn't work?
I mean, Ryan, do you even have anything about this movie that you didn't seem to like? Because I feel like you loved it.
Yeah, there really wasn't a whole lot about this movie that I didn't like. I honestly, I thought it was. I enjoyed almost every moment of it. There were some parts, especially with his interaction with women, that I'm like, I don't know if I like that so much. But it was when I see that, it's almost always a question of, well, I know this movie was released in 1997, and I know that's part of the joke, so I get it. But I'm not a super huge fan of it, so you take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't ruin the movie for me by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a little cringe moment. I think the other thing, I was just wildly uncomfortable in that scene where he's trying to make the 3-point turn in the
that is my favorite gag in the whole movie. Oh my God.
A good bit.
I get physically anxious watching it. Didn't enjoy that one so much. But
have you had issues with the 3-point turn? Have you scuffled with this in real life?
I really haven't. It's the fact that he's in that hallway and I'm putting myself in that situation. Like, God, I would be freaking out. I would not know what to do with myself in this. I would give up. I would just leave it sitting there blocking the hallway.
I like that this out of all the things in that movie made you uncomfortable.
The 3-point turn is what drives Ryan crazy.
3-point turn gag.
That's it. I'm out, he says. I'm out at the 3-point turn.
Not out. Just,
for me, though, it's the... I like the fact that, it is a parody, obviously. You're taking shots. But, I think the bit with Scott Evil talking about how... I think he does this multiple times in the film. Where he's like, dude, why don't you just shoot him? I have a gun in my closet. I can go get it right now, and we can blow these 2 people away. It's like, yeah, that's kind of... I know what you're getting at with that bit because it's totally playing on this trope, and it worked. And I just felt like that one goes... you're going so far from... You're lifting the curtain so much, and you're trying to, You're trying to be really, I don't know, really open about the fact that you're spoofing on it, but it kind of it's a joke that I feel like was a bit of a one-trick pony, and they kept I felt like they went to it more than once, so that one doesn't work for me as well.
That's I would say that's not just this movie, but this film franchise's problem in general is the overuse of gags. It could definitely benefit from a couple of these things being 30 seconds less than they are.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about the a lot of vagina thing is yeah, I get it. It's a play on Pussy Galore. But also enough.
Exactly.
I get it. It's funny. Let's move on.
Exactly. And I think that is I think that's the Mike Myers issue in general. I think if you look at later Mike Myers work, that is exactly, I think, the review of Mike Myers films is that it's too much. He takes, he tries to stretch one joke into 20 jokes or into 20 minutes worth of jokes. And I think he's guilty of that at in some cases here, certainly as this franchise moves forward, it's guilty a lot, right? I mean, because I think 3 is an abomination. Like, I think Goldmember is one of the worst 20 movies I've seen in the last 20 years.
Beyonce is acting in it.
Beyonce, and I don't even hate Beyonce. I hate Beyonce in this. Like, it was so bad. Like,
look, Beyonce is a beautiful goddess on this earth.
No
that
doubt.
being said, she is a horrible actress.
Horrible in this film for
actress.
sure. No doubt about it. Horrible in this movie. Makes Heather Graham look like Meryl Streep
Yeah.
in the second one. I mean, it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so that one's tough. And so you could see the kernels of overuse of the joke in this film that you're like, yeah, that joke's going to come back again in number 2 and in number 3. And you're like, okay. All right, I'm already tired of it, even though it's because I've seen the other 2 films, I'm tired of this joke, I think. So there's some pieces that don't work as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of why Goldmember sucks the most, is because it's just the 3rd time we've seen this movie. There are like aspects of Goldmember I remember really liking. For example, the casting of Michael Caine in general.
Yeah.
But that's because Michael Caine is a treasure, to planet Earth. But other
Let's
than
not
that,
get carried
it's just,
away here. I mean, he's good, but
he's Michael Caine.
well, I can't argue with that. He is Michael Caine. I mean, that is true.
I mean, he's been in bad movies, but has Michael Caine been bad in any of them?
It's fair. That's a fair point. I can't argue with you there. Goldmember, though, I think is one of those that's it's kind of like the great baseball player who took steroids. Like that's on the record. It's on the record. Like Michael Caine could have this great resume, but it's like you did Goldmember. It's on the record. You can't take it away. It's there. You can't unsee it. You can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it, but he also has the best line in that movie.
Yeah, go ahead.
When he's I can't remember who he's talking to because I have no interest in rewatching this film. But he said there are 2 things in this world that really make me angry. People who are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was something, you know what ruined Goldmember for me? There was something about this distinguished actor, Michael Caine, making penis jokes with Vern Troyer. Like,
yes.
I'm kind of like, God, that can't happen. There's got to be rules. We got to have rules here, damn it. We've got
I'm the only one who gives a shit about the rules here.
We have to have some hard and fast rules in movies, and Michael Caine making dick jokes to me is beyond the pale. It's beyond the pale, I tell you. So
that's the line.
I've decided that is the line. Everything stops and starts right there. Like, that's it. I got to ask, this is a weird question, but I wanted to throw this out there because I know you took a lot of notes. Has something, because you're a culture person too, as much as you are a movies person, you like to look at the world. You're you're enlightened, Lauren. Has something in culture ruined this movie, or has this movie ruined something in the culture? Both questions. So something about the modern world, we talk about how this film may not get made today. Is there something about today's world that ruins this movie? That just takes this movie and just destroys it?
I think culturally we expect a lot from our movies these days, which we should. I'm not against that. I am very pretentious, but I do think that we have kind of lost this ability to critically analyze media and critically analyze film and also just fucking enjoy it. Just enjoy it.
Right.
That's part of why I think this movie wouldn't get made. I would say a similar vibe type movie that I can think of that was made recently is like a Step Brothers.
Yeah.
And that movie's like 10 years old.
Yeah, you even feel like there's this gap, like where movies like even The Hangover and Step Brothers and stuff like that probably don't even get made now. You can almost feel like the culture's ruined films like that even, and we're talking about something even before that.
Yes.
So there's a pretentious, is that cancel culture? I mean, is that woke? I mean, what is that? What is doing that?
So, I mean, I think there's certainly an element to that we are constantly expecting like our films to do the heavy lifting. in terms of like social awareness. And I don't totally disagree with that. But sometimes movies are just fun, you know? And I think it's okay to critically analyze something and say, XYZ doesn't hold up. Maybe this isn't a super funny joke anymore. But also, this is just fun. It's silly. And it's good because of that. Not in spite of that. You know what I mean?
Right. I hear what you're saying there. Ryan, you're also tapped into the culture. Did you watch this film for the first time? Has something ruined? Has culture ruined this? Or did this joke, now that you've maybe heard something out of this movie and you're like, oh, that's where it comes from? So is there something there that's ruined the culture, or the culture ruining the movie? I mean, something like that.
I think we're too far removed for it to have done much for the culture today. I think if you would have asked me this question maybe 15 years ago, my answer would probably be different. But, you know, right now, I mean, we're so far past Austin Powers that, I mean, culture is almost always driven by youth, right? It's driven by youth, and it's driven by multiple factors, but the common thread is youth. And kids aren't watching Austin Powers. You know, this isn't a movie that is in the zeitgeist for the young kids. So
kids.
We were kids when this movie came out. They're watching YouTube videos and TikToks. I mean, they're barely watching movies, let alone Austin Powers.
You're right. This film doesn't hit the zeitgeist. Like, even movies like Breakfast Club that are still in the zeitgeist, right? That everybody still watches The Breakfast Club, or watches, some of those rite of passage films. The Caddyshack still sort of hold up in modern culture. And this one does not, though. Like, this one seems to kind of, like, a lot of those films in 97, like, if that big, long laundry list I just mentioned of all these giant blockbusters, how many of those movies are still, like, movies you gotta watch, right? Like, LA Confidential was, like, the best picture that year, and nobody watches LA Confidential. And I think LA Confidential is brilliant. Nobody watches it. Like, this is like a forgotten year.
Might be the best. I would argue Liar Liar might be the best comedy to come out of that year.
You might be right.
I don't know any kid who'd be watching it right now.
It's just not a part of the zeitgeist like it used to be. And I remember, because like Austin Powers was a phenomenon. I mean, that's why 3 of them got made.
In like 5 years, it was huge.
It was an absolute phenomenon. And I don't think that it just like dropped off or anything. I think it kind of trickled out. It is something that millennials, Gen X kind of generation all enjoy and maybe continue to enjoy. But you're right. Anybody younger than like, I feel like 25 is even, like, Ryan, you're 27. You haven't seen this movie.
Right.
All right. Let me ask you. Okay, keep going. If you have one more thought, fire away.
Oh, yeah. There is something that I took a note on. Excuse me 1 second. So
fire away.
Daniel Craig complained when he first starred in James Bond in Casino Royale. He complained that Austin Powers affected the James Bond franchise, like, detrimentally. And it's so Austin Powers came out around the Pierce Brosnan era.
Yeah, that's right.
And by Pierce Brosnan, it was still very, like, kitschy. It was cheesy almost.
Very, very campy still with him. Yep, for sure. No question.
Very campy. And Austin Powers really, like, put that kind of stuff on display. Like, this is all ridiculous. Look at us parodying it. And they're parodying it, but it's like, there are jokes, but this is what happens in these movies. It's not that different. They're not changing a ton. And because of that, they hired Daniel Craig, and they were like, we're going to do this dark, gritty reboot of James Bond.
It's brooding James Bond, yeah.
That's why we have Batman James Bond the way that we do now. Not complaining.
I love that James Bond, though, man. He kicks ass. I like Daniel Craig.
He's great. And I
just watched Casino Royale for the first time in like 10 years.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
That movie absolutely holds up.
Yeah.
Good.
That movie kicks a lot of ass. I mean, it's great. Skyfall is phenomenal. Skyfall's the best of the bunch, but I mean, it is so good. So good. Oh,
I'm a big fan of like the cerebral acting moments, and Mads Mikkelsen does that, you know, just about as well as anybody.
That's what this movie needs. Austin Powers needs Mads Mikkelsen. I mean, that's what would have. I mean, that brings it to another level if he's in it, right?
Well, you have the goofy Austin Powers versus the honest to God supervillain with the bleeding eye.
Needs it. Gotta have it. You gotta have it. It's what it's missing. It would take it to the next level.
I would pay for that. I would pay for that movie.
Royal flush, baby.
I would ask you this. Okay, Elizabeth Hurley, up or down?
Up.
I'd say up.
Yeah, I mean, up, no question. It's like she is at the height of her powers here, right? Like, This is where she is at her. I mean, this 2 to 3 year run, she doesn't do a lot of big time films like she does this one. She does My Favorite Martian. She does Ed TV. She has the cameo in The Spy Who Shagged Me, and she does Bedazzled. And then she's pretty much gone after that. Like, there's not much going on there. Still not much going on, to be perfectly honest with you. But height of her powers, she looks fantastic. Does she add something to this film, though? I mean, she's the best of the three, right? She's better than Heather Graham. She's better than Beyonce. Like, the movies drop off without Elizabeth Hurley.
I mean, that being said, I do like Heather Graham. I think it's part of why I liked The Spy Who Shagged Me more when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I just like Heather Graham's, but Heather Graham plays off of him versus Elizabeth Hurley's a straight man. That is her role in the movie. And I think she does that incredibly well, especially for somebody who isn't really an actress. She's a model, you know?
Yeah.
This is, I think, one of her first movie roles.
Yeah, she has some other stuff, like British stuff, a lot of Britishy stuff early on. She was in Passenger 57, kind of had a bit part there, it looks like, but this is really a pretty big role for her, right? And is this this is like post Hugh Grant, I think, right? I'm trying to remember.
I'm trying to remember when that actually happened, but I think
I've been a bad boy. This is post Hugh Grant with the prostitute. And like everybody's like, dude, you're with freaking Elizabeth Hurley. What the hell's the matter with you? You know, that's.
It's because Hugh Grant's a weird person, and we should also watch a Hugh Grant movie and get back to that.
See, Hugh Grant is like the one guy, he should run for president, because I'm telling you this, like, or prime minister, he should be the prime minister of England, because I swear to God, he's like the guy you can't stay mad at. Like, he could be the biggest asshole in the world, and all he has to do is show up and just go, well, you know, I'm just so unbelievable.
Just so delightfully charming.
Delightfully charming. What can I do? I mean, he's that. That's who he is.
That is literally the plot to every single movie he's ever been in, and it drives me freaking insane. There is an actual movie where he is just an asshole to Sandra Bullock for 2 hours, and because he's like kind of charming, and he says he like can't stop thinking about her at the end, even though he just negged her for 2 fucking hours. She's like, I guess I'll be in love with you. Sandra Bullock? I don't buy that.
Yeah. Yeah, Sandra Bullock, if you're not good to her in 5 minutes, she's going to tell you to pound sand, like right now. Don't you get that vibe? But I'm trying to picture the conversation between Hurley and Grant. Like, Hugh comes home, flies home, gets back to England. Is it time we have this conversation? Will you get the hell out of here? I mean, how dare you? And it's just, how can you stay mad at, she's the only person in the world who might have been able to stay mad at Hugh Grant for 5 minutes. I mean, it's just incredible.
Very politely took all of his things and packed them up in a nice little box and then put them on the corner. And that's exactly how.
She does have that disposition. Every time you see her interviewed, like, she seems like a really nice, like, chill person. And I feel like she should have done more. Don't you feel like it's kind of her top of the mountain? It's like, it's kind of her, it's her zenith, right? This movie is.
You're right. I really wish she would have done more. Actually, we should talk about Bedazzled sometime, because I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
Bedazzled is she is smoke show in Bedazzled too, and I mean, I'm not trying to judge that or anything. She's also a fine actress, but she's not hard to look at in Bedazzled, and that's what it's just thing to me is like, is it the fact that she's British and she doesn't do like American accents and stuff? Does that? I mean, Colin Firth's had a nice career. Martin Freeman's had a nice career. Hugh Grant. How come it's not for Elizabeth Hurley? Like, why don't we just have like 30 Elizabeth Hurley films to work with?
I think she suffers from a couple of things. One, she was a model, and that was what she was known for. And we're talking 90s, early 2000s as a career, a model turned actress. I mean, that's a pretty sexist time, you know? I mean, not that now isn't also kind of a sexist time, but She's literally in Bedazzled. And don't get me wrong, Bedazzled is a horrible movie, and she's the best part in it. But she is literally in Bedazzled in a bikini almost the whole time.
That is not a nice thing to say about Orlando Jones. How dare you? I'm telling you what, I will fight you. No, I'm kidding.
No, that is one of those movies where all the side characters are funnier and have better plots, and that's why it's bad. But we can talk about that when I am talking about my obsession with Brendan Fraser. Anyways,
I can't wait to get into that. That is going to be so good. Ryan, are you in on Brendan Fraser? You're going to talk about that one with us?
Oh man!
Over under 2.5 Brendan Fraser movies have you seen?
Hang on, I've seen Brendan Fraser movies, and I'll tell you why I've seen Brendan Fraser movies, because my wife thinks he's hot.
Because he is.
And
that's an indisputable fact.
I'm I don't know if I'll be on that pod. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'll probably be here.
Hey, so after Elizabeth Hurley, do we switch actors? Is there anybody you want to switch out? And with who?
No. I think this is the most I think this is just a very perfectly cast film.
Yeah.
Which sounds weird because Mike Myers plays two characters. But I also like that I like that he's playing these two characters in total juxtaposition to each other. I don't like it in The Spy Who Shagged Me, and I don't like it in Goldmember. It feels way too much.
He's way more of a caricature in 2 and 3. Dr. Evil is. Yeah. I think he's like, this is great Dr. Evil, and he wins the movie. Like, Dr. Evil totally wins this film. Like, he's the best. All the best scenes are Dr. Evil scenes. I actually wonder if you could swap out Austin Powers. Like, if you could swap Mike Myers just moves to the side, makes Dr. Evil obviously the huge character that it is, lets somebody else play Austin Powers. I feel like it's almost like Hugh Grant could play Austin Powers.
No. So here's my thing about that. I think it still has to be, like Ryan was talking about Jim Carrey being Austin Powers instead of Dr. Evil. I think it still has to be kind of awkward comedian, because I think that there are scenes that play so well because he's like, he's not like a heartthrob or something. He doesn't have abs. He's not
chest hair,
Fabio or whatever.
I honestly feel like that there's one other actor in this movie who could have played him.
Oh,
it's Will Ferrell.
That's an interesting one. That's interesting. What about Will Ferrell?
Kind of do the Anchorman thing as Austin Powers.
That's an interesting thought. That's an interesting thought, because Ferrell I think he's a weird actor, and we saw the Sherlock and Watson thing. Like, Holmes and Watson was a total disaster, so you wonder if that's not his bag, but at the same time, we don't know, right? That could have been something else.
I think that Will Ferrell can't do a British accent, so that's a big problem. I think that this was Mike Myers' character. That's what sparked this whole thing. I can't remember the exact fact, but his wife at the time, this was like an impression he did for his wife at the time, this like parody of James Bond. And she was the one who like convinced him to start writing a movie of it. So this is like, I do feel like this is kind of uniquely a Mike Myers impression. And I understand Will Ferrell, although I don't think he would make a convincing British person at all.
I can hear that.
I also think that Will Ferrell does not know. Like, this is a movie created, written, acted in. This is a Mike Myers project. And if Will Ferrell was in that role,
it becomes a Will Ferrell project.
Yes.
You're right.
And he cannot hold himself back.
You're right.
And
you're right.
I don't trust Mike Myers to hold him back either. So
they're rumoring an Austin Powers 4. It's rumored. It's not a official thing, I don't think, but it's rumored on IMDb. It's rumored as well, and it's been, people have talked about an Austin Powers 4 for a long time. Do you want to see it?
No, not at all.
I don't.
Not
either.
in the slightest.
I don't either.
I think, like we were talking about before, it's totally out of the zeitgeist now. Who's going to see it? None of us want to see it because we all saw Austin Powers 3.
Yeah, 3 was bad. Unless you feel like 4 can redeem 3. That's the only thing that I can think of. But I don't know if you can.
I don't know if you can, and I don't think that there's a fresh take on it. I think that's, there's like this thing right now where it's like everything that came out 10 plus years ago, we have to have a reboot of it, or we have to have a sequel for it, or whatever. And it's like sometimes things are just lightning in a bottle, and you should be happy that they worked at all.
That's fair. I could listen to that.
That is how I feel about Austin Powers. It's why Anchorman 2 didn't work. It's why Zoolander 2 didn't work. I don't need another Austin Powers. You should be happy it worked at all.
They're talking about what if they did a reboot, though, and not Austin Powers 4 per se, but what if they rebooted the franchise, started completely over, different actors, different everything? Who plays Austin Powers? If they did it. If they did a reboot, who plays him?
Davidson. I'm just kidding.
No.
Pete Davidson would be a great choice.
He's no longer from the UK. He's just from Long Island.
Yeah.
James Corden.
James Corden is interesting. James Corden is interesting. I like that one. All right.
Actually, no. I have a legitimate suggestion who I think could do it if they rebooted it today. That's John Oliver.
John Oliver.
I would love to see him as Austin Powers.
He's Basil. He's Basil Exposition or whatever his name is. That's who he'd be. I think he'd be Basil.
I think he'd be Basil. I don't think he would be bad as Austin Powers.
No,
I think that
he'd be good. Craig Ferguson. I always think there's got to be a role for Craig Ferguson in whatever the reboot is. No matter what, there's got to be a role for him. Who plays Dr. Evil in a reboot? Because it wouldn't be the same actor. You got to go with something else, right? You got to bring somebody else.
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell is Dr. Evil. Okay.
I think that would be a much better role for him. Very reminiscent of Mugatu from Zoolander.
Yeah, I could get down with that. Yep, I could see that.
I think he'd be much better at that than Austin Powers.
Oh my gosh. Okay, who wins the movie? Who's this movie? Who this movie becomes a giant film? Who wins it? Why? And
who gets the one?
Yeah, who gets the one here? Who gets the one in this one? We'll do a little speech judging. Who gets the one in this round?
I mean, I do want to say Mike Myers because this is probably number 1, if not number 2 on things he's ever done.
Is this better than 54? He's great in 54, and he's great, obviously, as Shrek. That's the thing. I'm trying to figure out if it's this or it's Shrek for Mike Myers. Is this the zenith?
I mean, I think that Shrek has more of a obviously still in the zeitgeist, although more of a joke. I can't tell. I'm getting to that point in my age where I can't tell if people legitimately like Shrek. Or if they're making fun of it.
Yeah.
I like Shrek.
Yeah, I like Shrek.
I don't know what to make of that shit at all. I would say this is 1 above Shrek for me.
So this is it. Mike Myers wins the movie here. It's his movie, obviously, but it's his zenith. It's his best film. It's his opus. If Mike Myers drops dead tomorrow and you're like, here's the one movie of Mike Myers, it's this one, right?
I think so, yeah. I think it showcases his acting prowess, his writing ability. This is totally this movie.
I think it is Mike Myers. I agree with you. I think it is. But I think Elizabeth Hurley gets a close second here. Because this is huge for Hurley. I think it doesn't parlay into a big career, but this is truly her zenith. This is what gives her little 2-year run. This is what makes her somebody that people talk about for a couple years, and she's actually pretty decent in this film. She holds up a little bit. I liked her in this one. I thought she was good.
I fully agree. I think that it's really expected when you hire a model to be in a movie, especially a model to play a straight man or a romantic interest or whatever. You just kind of expect them to show up, and she's great. One of the scenes that I feel like she actually does really well, especially as a straight man, is when they're on the tour of Dr. Evil's lab.
Yep.
And she's wearing, both of them are wearing the most ridiculous blending in outfits. She's wearing a cowboy hat and this like crop top. She looks like Dolly Parton in a Halloween wig. And she's just like
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. No. Not nothing at all. Nothing at all.
But it's like nothing is phasing her. Like this is a normal Tuesday. And she's asking him questions because he slept with a lot of vagina, and she's asking him questions about it. And she's just acting, dude. Acting in this most ridiculous outfit that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Playing it so straight too, like not giving a minute on this one.
No. And she is really good. She has a lot of understated moments in the movie. I love her in this.
So if we score it like a speech round, Myers gets the 1 for Dr. Evil Austin Powers. Elizabeth Hurley gets the 2. Who gets the 3? Seth Green?
Seth Green.
Is this Seth Green for the 3?
I'd agree.
I think
Seth Green
with Frau Verbissina making a run at her. Is it Mindy Sterling making a run at her? I think running at him. That's pretty close. I think she's 4, Verbissina's 4, and then 5 is Will Ferrell in the small part because that scene just makes you laugh. Is that it? Is that how we score this?
I think so. I think that works for me.
I think that works. Yeah.
I love it. Oh, somebody's iPad's going nuts over there. That's what
It's the Alexa goes off once a day.
Oh. What? Any last minute notes on this film that we want to talk about? Anything that we want to get out that we haven't gotten out yet?
Oof.
We covered a lot of ground here in an hour. My gosh.
We did. I have a true crime fact if anyone's interested.
Yeah, let's have it.
Sure.
Let's take it.
The true crime fact of the pod.
Yeah.
The true crime fact of the pod. I'll make sure to have one. I won't. I'll make sure to have one every movie. Joe Son, the actor who played Random Task, which is also a great name.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is serving a lifetime sentence for an assault on a woman from 1990, 7 years before the movie came out.
Does he use his shoe to take her head off in the in the assault? They're like, the cops are sitting there, man, we are stumped on this case. We have no leads. And then they see him do that. They're like, that's it. We've got him. Get him.
A light bulb went off. Yeah, seven. So 7 years before that, you hear I feel like you hear all the time about random actors in these movies, like disappearing or whatever. And but it's usually after a movie is made.
Yeah.
Some crime of desperation or whatever. No. He freaking assaulted a woman 7 years before he was in this like major film, and they didn't catch him until for 18 years.
Can you see like the victim going, what do you mean you can't see him? He's right there. He's right on the screen. It's that guy.
It's the guy who threw a shoe, and everyone's like, okay, sure.
Sure. Okay. Yep. You're right. Yep. It's clearly that guy. Yep.
I just found that to be absolutely bonkers.
That's an astonishing
thing.
On
the shoe that he touched you?
Yeah. Can you? Well, that explains the shoe polish. Now everything's starting to come into focus here. It's like a Keystone Cop routine down there. They're just like, we cannot figure out for the life of us how this happened. Ah, there it is. That's so good. I didn't know that. That explains why Random Task isn't in the second one.
Yes.
I always thought, man, that guy could make a return. That would be okay. I thought that he was menacing enough.
But no, because he wasn't caught, and he wasn't 18 years after the crime is when he was
So
caught.
He's not busted until 2008. Mm-hmm. So he gets to kind of live the good life off Austin Powers. Like, hey, I was the dude who threw the shoe in Austin Powers. That was me.
Yeah.
Right? That's...
For almost a decade afterwards. What? I don't know. I thought that was freaking bonkers, so I had to write it down.
That is a great way to end the pod. We need to have a true crime of the film on every pod that you do, Lauren. Oh, my goodness. I loved it.
Make sure. We'll see.
That is peak cinema on my pod. This is going to be so good, Lauren. I can't wait. I cannot wait to have you in again. We got to pick the next movie here really soon. Like you and I we got to talk about this. We got to map this out, and we got to do this very, very soon. We cannot wait to do another one of these silly movie pods. It's going to be so good. If you have any questions, obviously, you can tweet at Lauren, which is at GoFuckYourself. Go find that on Twitter. I think it's GUH.
GAHFUK.
GAHFUK. It's the most ridiculous Twitter handle, but you would expect nothing less from Lauren. I would love that if you put that on a job resume real soon. Like, when are you putting that on an application? And yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at GoFuckYourself, and enjoy it. It's great. But you can find her there. You can find me, of course, at Mr. Tim Anderson. You can find Ryan at Sweet Cane Music on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram at Mr. Tim Anderson if you want to do that. You can also find the pod, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. Podbean, obviously. And like I said, things are going well. So I hope you're enjoying some different content. Please make sure that you send all comments or questions if you really liked what you heard today. If you like Lauren and you want Lauren on the football pod, we'll figure out a way to get her on. I'm sure her football takes will be no different than Ryan's and Zach's. I'm sure they'll be just as quality, no doubt about it. But Lauren adds definitely a touch of class to the program. Thanks for coming on, Lauren. Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ryan, as always, my friend, a pleasure to see you.
Good to see you, man.
Absolutely. Guys, thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next time. Until then, keep your head up, and we'll see you.